Welcome back to another Hearthstone card evaluation for the Great Dark Beyond. Today I'm going to be looking at Death Knight cards. I know I'm a little bit behind, but yeah, we're just going to get right into it anyways. Hooves is not with me today for these evaluations. I actually messaged him to ask if he wanted to, and he said he doesn't really play Death Knight, so he won't have a lot to say about it. So hopefully I'll be able to carry it on my own this time. I don't really play a ton of Death Knight, to be honest, myself, but yeah, we'll see what kind of insight I can bring to this one anyways. Just music's probably about good there. Okay, so let's just get into it. Honestly, just to start out, I guess, as well, I don't play a lot of Death Knight, but I do understand, like, Death Knight is in this weird state of, like, the runes make it very difficult to evaluate cards, in addition, because, you know, like a card like this, right? I'm not going to look at the specifics, but, like, the 2 blood runes on it means that it can be used only in very specific archetypes above and beyond just the fact that it has to be in Death Knight, which makes it way harder to evaluate without being, like, much more knowledgeable about Death Knight in general and how all the different archetypes kind of work and what's good and not good and standard and wild and so on. So I'm going to do my best on this one, but that all is just to say that I am less confident in my ability to judge these ones than other ones because of the nature of Death Knight. All that being said, we'll start out with the 8 Hands from Beyond. This one got a lot of people talking yesterday when they announced it. It is an 8 mana, 8/8 beast. Battlecry, destroy both players' decks except the 8 highest cost cards in each. Very, very interesting card. I immediately think if this is played, it will be just as frustrating, if not more, tilting and all that kind of stuff than when we were playing with stuff like Ticketus in the game, because it's even like much more of a big deal than that. It leaving the 8 highest cost cards in each is interesting, and the way that it, like, because it's an 8 cost card, that means that players will have drawn around half of their decks already by the time that this could come down onto the field, and that's with no, like, extra draws or whatever as well. So if they're about 15 cards in, I guess it depends as well if anyone, like, if you're playing Prince Renethal, this is a lot more damaging to you. Otherwise it's not. It's a way to essentially just accelerate towards the end game, I guess, really, right? And I could see a card like this fitting really well into something like Ramp Druid, but it's not bad in Death Knight anyways, probably. The big thing for this really is that it immediately invalidates combo-centric decks. Like, anything that relies on a lot of low-cost cards, if you do this, you've destroyed their engine, likely. Now, it's worth noting, a lot of those decks might be able to draw to the point where they have all of their combo pieces, or they have enough of it that if like, they might only have 10 cards left in their deck by the time you can drop this, in which case, who cares? So then you start looking at it from the perspective, I guess, of, it's anti-control, but it isn't really anti-control because it affects both decks. So the best case scenario for a card like this, for whoever's running it, is to accelerate quickly through your own deck to draw so that you're getting a significant benefit out of this and your opponent isn't. Something like if you could draw to the point where you're only deleting a couple of cards from your deck, but you're deleting like 8 or 9 cards from your opponent's deck. I don't know if that checks out mathematically, but something like that, let's just say. Maybe you can get some coins or other ways to... there's some spells that give you... I guess those just refill empty mana crystals. Yeah, I don't know. I could see that being the archetype that this fits into. It's worth noting as well that if you drop this and you are behind on the board, you probably just die. It doesn't have taunt. It's not really great stat lines for an 8-drop. So the only situation you would want to play this is if you're on a neutral or positive board space, and if you're in that state as like anyways, then why not just play something that probably wins you the game? I guess this could. I don't know. Very interesting, very potentially tilting, but does it see a lot of play? I don't know. It also, like, you know, once again, talking about Death Knight archetypes, like, actually, it's worth noting this has kind of anti-synergy with Hagatha and all of the plagues, but once again, I don't really know what plague cards and all that really fit into anyways. I feel like you could probably put Hagatha, like, I think she's probably only like a 1 green rune or something like that, but yeah, it's got anti-synergy in my opinion, because unless the opponent is running like 1 cost cards exclusively, I think the plagues all have like a mana value of 2, so this will just delete all of them. And I don't know, I feel like the endless nature of the plagues wouldn't be superseded by the fact that this says destroy them, right? So yeah, very odd, interesting card. I guess this has some synergy as well with Kill Jaden, because you could delete both players' decks, and then at the end, once you know you've got no cards left, then you just play Kill Jaden, and then you can kind of outlast anyways. But yeah, I mean, if that kind of stuff is happening in the meta, I feel like everyone's going to be running Kill Jaden, and then that's also probably not a healthy state for the game, because then it just comes down to luck of the draw, literally, in every end state. Anyways, let's move on from this one. Next up, we got Exarch Maladar. This is a 6 mana 5/5 Draenei, so we got potential Draenei synergy. Battlecry, the next card you play this turn costs corpses instead of mana. This is going to be annoying. Corpses are extremely, extremely easy for Death Knight to accrue. Especially if you're playing decks that don't really eat into them all that much. And like cards for like Warlock or other classes that cost health instead of mana are already like ridiculously good. I think that this sees play in maybe literally every Death Knight deck that can play like a 1 green rune deck, like, you know, whatever. Like if you can put green rune into your deck, you should be playing this, I think. And maybe I'm just incorrect, but to me it feels like every time that I'm playing into a Death Knight that's not like actively using the thing that like blows up all your corpses to clear the board or whatever, and even if they are doing that, like they still generally have like, you know, 10 or more corpses by the time that you could probably put this onto the board. Which means that you could potentially play this into any 10 drop, because it doesn't even say like next Draenei or anything like that. Couple that with the fact that you could then use Velen later on to get this effect again, because this is a Draenei. It feels really, really, really strong. If there was a card that I've seen this entire expansion so far that I think will likely be nerfed, I could see this one being on the chopping block. Because any kind of mana cheating is hard to deal with, but like I said, I think that by the point that you could drop this, you could easily drop this into a 10 or whatever drop, right, that you feel like. So that won't feel that good, being on the receiving end. Granted, it's, if you're talking about it that way, that's on about the same power level as the Mage Tourist for Rogue that drops on turn 6, where they drop it on turn 6 and then drop a tsunami on you right afterwards, or a whatever the fire spell is. So you know what, I don't know. Granted, they did nerf Tsunami because of that card. They should have just nerfed, or actually they nerfed both of them. Yeah, I don't know. I've never been a big fan of mana cheating. Anytime that I see it, I see ridiculous value and easy. Like, this seems like it's overtuned to me. But we'll see. Next up, we got Aanai. I don't know exactly how to pronounce that. Death Speaker. 1 mana, 1/3 Draenei. After another friendly minion is reborn, summon a copy of it. Is this that good? There is a kind of sticky minion in... Oh, wait, no, is that... Am I thinking of Battlegrounds? I mean, obviously there's the combo that Death Knights like to throw down, which is like any of your death rattles that you put down get reborn. This is kind of a little bit of an awkward one, unless you can have reborn rushes, which I don't know that there are any currently, or there's not like a prevalence of them anyways. What you would want to do is set up with a bunch of minions that could get reborn, and then the next turn you would play this onto that board, kill all of them, and then you get 2 copies of each of them. Which is a little bit of a weird combination. Mix that with the fact that when they're reborn, you're getting a copy of the version that has like 1 health and doesn't have reborn anymore. But I guess if you put that on death rattles, and that's still a lot of value anyways. It's a little bit of an awkward card. I could definitely see it being like just added onto that combination where, like I said, you just throw down the guy that gives your death rattles reborn, you throw down a couple of minions, hope that they don't die that turn so you can throw down this guy the turn afterwards and then get them killed after that. Get all their death rattles a bunch of times. It's a pretty good combination, but it feels awkward to pull off, and it's negated if your opponent ends up just killing your, like, you know, taking the reborn away during that in-between step, which makes it a little bit unreliable. So it puts it in an awkward position where it's like, when do I play this? Do I play it on the turn that I put down the reborn guys, or do I put it down the turn afterwards, assuming that they can't clear them? And that makes me think that it's maybe less good, a little bit. But I am willing to be incorrect about that. Next up, we got Guiding Figure, a 2 mana 3/2 spell burst, trigger a random friendly minion's death rattle, and it is a starship piece. Oh yeah, it's like the thing, like it's a hood ornament, essentially, or the thing that you put on the like on a ship, like the little figure that goes on the front of a ship. Okay, this spell burst, trigger a random friendly minion's death rattle on spell burst. That's a pretty good effect, all things considered. Getting extra value out of your death rattles is like kind of a key selling point of Death Knight. And obviously the more valuable death rattles that you have on your board, the better for this. But even if you just get like, you know, the guy that you throw him down in its battle cry and death rattle is draw a card, if you can do that and then just play any spell right afterwards and get this to trigger as well, like that's pretty good. Is it good enough that you would desperately want it on your ship? Maybe. Is there another starship piece that has a death rattle to it for Death Knight? Yes, there is. Okay, so let's look at this real quick. Soulbound Spire, 3 mana, 2/2. Death rattle, summon a minion with cost equal to this minion's attack up to 10. Can the Guiding Figure... It could. It says a random friendly minion. It doesn't say another random friendly minion. So if all you have is your starship when you do a spell and you've got both of these effects, actually if you've killed 2 of the Soulbound Spire by that point, you get 2... Oh my goodness. Does the spell burst also get added onto your starship twice? Because if it does, then you would get like 4 10 cost minions when you do the spell burst in addition to your starship, which feels insane. That's, once again, assuming that you set yourself up correctly and killed 2 Guiding Figures and 2 Soulbound Spires. Seems like a pretty good deal. If you can afford to play this and this twice in leading up to getting your starship, or even less than that potentially, like anything above 6 or 7 mana with that spell burst is going to be pretty good, right? Like, yeah, I think Guiding Figure, Soulbound Spire both see play, and they don't have any runes on them as well, so they could see play in any type of Death Knight deck, but probably leaning towards a more late game focused one. Pretty good, both of those. I don't have to look at that other one later. Next up, we got Airlock Breach. This is a 6 mana spell, no spell school. Summon a 5/5 undead with taunt and give your hero +5 health. Spend 5 corpses to do it again. This is a blood and plague rune. I don't know if they're actually called that, but like it's got both of those runes on it. At 6 mana, if you get the spend 5 corpses to do it again, then this seems pretty good because you get 10 health. And it's not like healing health, it's like total. So you go up from 30 to 40 if you haven't taken any damage. Seems pretty good to me. I don't know necessarily if this fits into Death Knight decks. But for the value of it, 6 mana to get 2 5/5 taunts is maybe a little bit high, but then adding on the fact that you get the health feels pretty good, probably. Once again, I'm not that knowledgeable with Death Knight, and it's hard to say if in the Blood Plague rune meta, if this could fit in, but seems pretty value, like, neutral or whatever. Like, I could see it seeing play. Next up, we got Wakener of Souls. This is a 10 mana 8/7 taunt, reborn, death rattle, resurrect a different friendly death rattle minion. Ooh. Okay, so it's a 10 mana card. Honestly, this feels like it's padding the 10 mana pool. I mean, it's not like it's bad by any means, but like usually you don't run a lot of 10 drops in your deck. This does have Taunt, Reborn, and relatively alright stats, considering the fact that it's also got a good death rattle on it. I guess the big problem is if, like, you know, let's say that you're playing into a Highlander deck, you play this, your opponent plays Reno or whatever, like, okay, get screwed, I guess. And then you also can't, like, you wouldn't really... No, wait, does the Reno effect wear off after your turn's done or after your opponent's next turn is done? I think it's after your turn's done, so you could actually play this onto a Reno'd board, and that's pretty good value. But 10 is just so much to pay for one card. Still, if you play very few death rattle minions that all have very valuable death rattles and maybe have high stats as well, like, this is pretty decent. Add on to that, there's a location where you can trigger a friendly minion's death rattle, right? Do I have to look this up? I'm gonna try and look this up quick. This is from when we were talking about the Demon Seed on the last one. Standard cards, I want to look at, not that, I want to look at locations, card type, location, and I want to look at spend 3 corpses to give a friendly minion reborn. That's something that you could do for that other one, actually, but it doesn't really fit into what I'm talking about. Horizon's Edge, no. Maybe there isn't. There is one for maybe a different class. I don't know. Yeah, I don't see it. Okay, so not as good in that case, but I guess if you could play that other one that gives your... No, it already has Reborn, so that doesn't even matter. If there's any way to immediately trigger its death rattle when it comes down, that's pretty strong. I'd say anyways. Oh, you know what? Actually, I'm not even considering this in relation to Exarch Maladar. This is probably one of the most perfect cards you could play right after Exarch Maladar, you know? Like, this is a huge body, and if you've already played a few relatively good death rattles up until this point, that's really strong. Add on to that the fact that you could probably play Soulbound Spires before that as well. Get them both killed and then resummon them to add to your starship, and then eventually you just click that starship. I mean, if you've done like the most you could do by the point that you drop Exarch Maladar, I'm thinking like play 2 Guiding Figures, play 2 Soulbound Spires, have them all die, click your starship on turn 5, like eventually, you know, whatever, then you play Exarch Maladar into Wakener of Souls, kill off your starship, let Wakener of Souls, I mean, it might just revive your Soulbound Spires, but if it doesn't, it could also revive your starship itself. Probably. I guess it depends on how the starship actually functions. Like if it's like a Jade idol, I think the Jades are all like unique based on like the stat line and everything. TBD if that's really, really strong or if it's just kind of strong. But if it can revive an entire starship, that's really, really, really good. Either way, I think that Exarch Maladar into Wakener of Souls is a strong combo. So I could see that. I could see this guy leading to Wakener of Souls being good. Because mana cheating always makes stuff better. Okay, but anyways, let's move on. We've already talked about Soulbound Spire. I think it's really strong. Orbital Moon. 1 mana, 2 blood rune spell. Give a minion taunt and lifesteal. If you played an adjacent card this turn, also give it reborn. They're kind of like soft pushing the if you've played an adjacent card this turn thing. I'm curious why they didn't give that a keyword. Like, they haven't put it on too many cards, but like, it's just kind of wordy when they write it out like that every time. Anyways, okay. Taunt and lifesteal for 1 is already pretty strong. If you played an adjacent, I mean, putting reborn onto anything is like way stronger. And yeah, I mean, like, really, all 3 of these effects are strong. If you can make it get the 3rd one, it's like busted. I could definitely see this seeing play. I think that it is pretty good. But it would have to be in a lower mana curve deck, to be fair, because in a higher mana curve deck, you can't necessarily force the adjacent cards thing as easily as a lower one. Next up, we got Suffocate. This is a 4 mana shadow spell. Destroy a minion if you're building a starship. Also destroy a random neighbor. Destroy a minion for 4 is better than Assassinate used to be anyways. I think that was for 5, right? Or was it for 4? They might have nerfed it to 5. I mean, obviously Assassinate's not like the bar or anything like that, but just worth noting like where we've come from. Is single target removal good enough at this point in Hearthstone? Like, I'm trying to think what you would play this into. I don't know. Obviously, like, 2 target removal with like a non-guarantee is alright, but like if your opponent has 3 minions on board, you can guarantee 2 of them are removed. So the big thing to play into a Death Knight at that point would be to put both of your valuable minions on the outsides, so that they have to ping the middle one to get to one or the other, and they don't get to choose it, I guess. Or they just ping one side, but they can't get to the other side. I don't think this is that good. I don't know for sure. Killing 1 target for 4 is not, in my opinion, all that good. Killing 2 targets for 4, with one of them not being a guarantee which one it's going to be, doesn't feel that strong. But I might be completely incorrect about this. Like, obviously this could fit alright into a control-y type deck. Maybe I'm just incorrect. I couldn't tell you for sure if this is super strong, but it feels a little bit like maybe this isn't. Last we got Assimilating Blight. This is a 3-mana blood rune and then 2 plague rune card, spell card rather. With the effect is discover a 3-cost Death Rattle minion, summon it with Reborn. 3-cost Death Rattle minion. Let's see if we can quickly just check those out here. Keywords, Death Rattle. And it has to be a minion. Because there are some weapons. Alright, so this is generally the pool that we'll be looking at with this then. Yeah, what's the actual total effect here? Sorry, it's discover a 3-cost Death Rattle minion, summon it with Reborn. Summoning a Death Rattle with Reborn for the same amount that you would get to summon it anyways, but it's semi-random. Out of this pool, I mean, Battlecry and Death Rattle summon a 2/2 Treant. That's pretty decent if you're getting the Reborn on it. Death Rattle says 4 or more attacks, summon a Bovine Skeleton. Like, some of these are more conditional, but because it's a Discover, I feel like this is a... the big issue with this then would be the runes, and I can't speak very well to whether or not 1 Blood, 2 Plague is like a common enough deck type, like archetype, to be played, but I think that this seems like it's really, really strong to me. So I think it sees play. I think that it's good enough. But yeah, anyways, that's all the Death Knight cards. Like I said, I'm not very knowledgeable on Death Knight. I hate playing into it. It's my least favorite class in the game. But obviously it's very strong. I think some of the stuff that I've seen here will probably make me hate it even more, but that's kind of just the way that it goes. If you disagree with anything that I talked about here, if you think that if you've got any differences of opinion, rather, feel free to leave a comment. Let me know. I do check them. I've been trying to respond. I got a comment about my opinion on, I think it was the Hunter one. Let me just confirm here. It was the Hunter one. And I responded because that guy was totally correct. And yeah, so leave a comment, let me know, and we'll see you in the next one.